Hi there. Good evening. How are you doing today? I am doing great. Today was a really fantastic day. I was really productive, pretty impressive. Um, I did a lot at work and I did laundry afterwards. I went to the gym today, which I'm always proud of doing. Glad I can go to the gym and have an excellent workout. Yeah, today was leg day and I was able to do some other work. Um, I'm starting to do less flat bench in the gym. I've been reading a lot and watching videos about how it may not be the best exercise for one's shoulder health. And um, I don't think I ever really do enough weight on the bench press to constitute a problem, but you never know. And, it is a kind of a constraining position, especially when you're doing the flat bench with the barbell, right? If you're doing flat bench with dumbbells, it's not so much a problem because you can maneuver your elbows and shoulders enough so that you're comfortable. You can go as deep as you'd like, and it's just easier with the dumbbells than it is with the barbell. And but I do appreciate the barbell, and I still do. I still do use the barbell when it comes to things like deadlifts and squats, but anyway, I was thinking I'd focus a little bit more on using machines like hammer strength machines and dumbbells for flat bench. And so, anyway, that's just something I've been thinking about lately. Everybody makes when it comes to working out. It's everything is a process, right? You're learning, listening to your body, and making mistakes as you go, making slight improvements, sort of doing your best to just continually increase the either the volume or the weight or even your motivation, maybe your happiness level you want to maximize while you're working out at the gym. It's a lifelong process. And so that's one of the things I really appreciate about weightlifting, and that is it's just a continual sense of discovery and understanding about what your body does. And believe it or not, it is a really safe type activity, uh, such an activity that really prevents future injuries, which is, you know, not easy to say about pretty much any exercise. Of course, if you do get better, you get better at um, sort of flexing your muscles and making sure that they contract, and you understand what that's like. One thing I also like about weightlifting is that it is a check on the system. It helps me verify that um, my joints are working like they ought to, and that in order to sort of know what your limits are, you sort of have to approach them. You have to approach them, and you've got to learn how to approach them in a safe way. And weightlifting really helps you do that. It helps you figure out, okay, and at the same time, it strengthens a lot of those secondary muscles. It helps you with balance, and it helps you with all kinds of things, coordination, indirectly. And so, yeah, I really enjoy working out the gym. It's one of the life's great pleasures, in fact, in my life, and I'm glad to have it in my life. Another thing I wanted to tell you about today was an interest that I'm developing as it relates to rivers and streams. Um, Last weekend, I went to Arroyo Grande, California, and I was just looking around, enjoying myself. And I went to one of there's a creek that runs almost straight through Arroyo Grande, and I guess it's the Arroyo Grande Creek, and it's a third order stream, which means it has headwaters, tributaries that combine, uh, and they join um, three times in order to sort of meet at the creek. And so it's an exciting kind of place to be. It's an exciting place to be near a creek for a lot of reasons. Um, for example, first of all, human beings have an amazing relationship with water. I know anytime I'm near water, I there's just a part of me that gets excited. I recognize that this is a place where there's an interaction among plants and animals, land and sea, like there isn't anywhere else. And it's an exciting place to be. Um, yeah, I really do think that animals come to drink water near creeks and rivers and streams, even lakes and ponds. And so at any moment you might spy or see some wildlife. So, I mean, I saw a lot of wildlife near the creek and I enjoyed spotting it. Lots of different butterflies and bugs and wasps. Well, I don't know if I saw wasps, but I did see bees. And I saw fish, little baby fry that were on the bed of the stream. And, and that was just the animals. I saw also a lot of plants, lots of different kinds of plants that I enjoyed doing my best to try to identify. I saw lots of birds. Quite often near streams or creeks, there's riparian areas where maybe there's been some flooding in the past, and the vegetation there is just home to many birds and nests of those birds. And it's just a really exciting place to be where a lot of things are coming together. And besides, there's something exciting about water. There's just something exciting about water. There's like it's a sort of a mystery. What's in the water, and there's so many things. There's rocks and sand and moss, algae. Sometimes there's fish. Um, th- there's bugs that skate along the top of the water. And quite often there are leaves. There's leaf fall that falls into the water, and water's always changing too. It's always kind of interesting to approach a creek and ask yourself, well, how does this level of water, this rate of flow, differ from what it was weeks ago or months ago or last year? It's just an exciting place to be, and I really feel moved by lakes. I do think of them as being like the circulatory system of the land, of the earth. And I think there's a lot of truth there. I think there's something that's living and breathing about rivers. I think there's something exciting about rivers because they can be fairly unpredictable. Um, and yeah, I think I'm excited about rivers, and beyond even just the naturalistic aspects of it, there are sport enthusiast type aspects of rivers. There you can go swimming in a river, you can go kayaking or canoeing in a river, you can go swimming in a river. Did I say swimming already? You can wade in a river, you can do exploration around a river. Like you could also do some scientific tests. You could test for pH or turbidity in the water. You could bring your microscope and look at the algae that's growing, the moss, maybe some of the microscopic organisms that are living along the banks or in the mud. And I mean, it's just the site of so much activity next to rivers. And California has a lot of wonderful rivers. And I'd like to get to know rivers a little bit more deeply. I think, especially with an eye or a mind toward understanding climate change better, having a better understanding of rivers, I think, goes a long way to getting some perspective about what's going on in the world as it relates to climate change. Climate change has a lot of effects, complex effects on rivers and the ecology of rivers. And, you know, Quite often, because of climate change, we're going to have more dramatic rainfall, more intense rainfall. There's a shift in seasonal rainfall, and so there's going to be shifts in patterns, and there might be more or less flooding depending on the circumstances. There might be more or less drought, um, and then there's also, beside all of that, are legal aspects of water, uh, water rights and water access. Um, I mean, there. I think water is also an incredibly destructive force at times, especially when people are nearby. Homes can get flooded, um, and people can have accidents near rivers and get injured near them, and especially when they change rapidly. There's just so many. There are few more exciting places than those places near rivers, or near bodies of water in particular. So I don't know. I'm excited about learning more about rivers. I'm curious to know about what the what where the basins are in my area, and I think I'd like to find trails where I can walk along riversides, and maybe learn about techniques where I can sort of I don't know, do some measurements. I don't know, measure maybe the width of the water, the speed of the current. I think that might be kind of fun. I, from an artistic perspective, rivers are also quite picturesque. I have an interest in art, and I could bring my easel out there near a river, and I could begin to draw certain landscapes. I could draw portraits of animals that are hanging out near rivers. I could pull out my camera and take some photographs of the area. I can take rubbing drawings of leaves that fall nearby. I mean, I could do plant identification and animal identification near the banks. I mean, it's really just an exciting place to be, and I think it goes a long way towards building greater appreciation for the natural history of the area. Oh, there's other aspects too that relate to geology and mineralogy, right? Perhaps the bed of the river or stream has a limestone bed. Maybe there's rates of erosion that um, are dominant on one side, one bank of the river as opposed to another. Maybe the river meanders instead of is straight, and there are parts of the river banks that collapse and their roots exposed. There, who knows? I mean, there could be all kinds of things, fossils. So I don't know. I just think of them as really amazing resources, curious places to develop knowledge, places to have fun, places to practice art. And I don't know, I just think it's a wonderful way to commune with nature and learn about the landscape. And what's great too is that a lot of these waterways are developed. And so there are recreational areas that that already are established where people are camping and boating, and so there are sites already laid out. Isn't that nice? I mean, I just think that's really idyllic. I could go bicycle riding and near these bodies of water. I could learn how to do new activities. Like, I have been kayaking, but I could do like a whitewater rafting or whitewater kayaking, or who knows what I can do. Who knows what's possible? And so I don't know. I think even tracking the river might be kind of fun. If there are any webcams that are looking at the river, at rivers, I don't know. I just think of them as like a dynamic thing. It's oddly enough, in a way, I kind of think of them as a little more interesting than oceans. Now, I've always sort of struggled around ocean. Um, I have because you need really specialized equipment to sort of get out into the ocean. You need to go on large boats, like a rental boat or something like that. Of course, that's not altogether true. A person can have like a canoe or a sit on top kayak or stand up paddleboard. Stand up paddleboard. That's also another thing one can do on the river. It's a little harder to do it on a river as opposed to a lake because you'll move with the current from point A to point B. And so, there's a challenge there about getting back to your spot after you've spent some time on the river. But if you could defeat those logistical challenges, why not? So, getting back to the ocean, the thing about the ocean is that it's salt water. It's salt water. And so there are fewer plants, I guess, unless you're in a part of the uh, part of the shore that where plants grow in brackish water. I mean, it might be the case that that's true. That's not always the case. A lot of the time, people like going to beaches, and a beach is like a strand of sand. And as a human, I gotta, which the strand of sand is quite often barren, right? Maybe it'll have driftwood or sea glass on it, maybe shells, perhaps, or oil residue. Um, you know, birds quite often, people walking their pets. It's a really nice place to do some people watching. But I don't think for me those shorelines are as active as river banks when it comes to different varieties of plants and animals. Yeah. And maybe even activities. I'm not sure. The thing about if you think about it just from a surface area standpoint, streams and creeks have more surface area that's accessible. There seems to be for me more opportunities. There's two banks quite often, whereas with an ocean beach, there's just one bank because the other bank may be on the other side of the world. You can't access the second bank. Whereas with a stream or a creek, quite often you can either cross the stream or there's a handy bridge nearby and you can cross that way and get on the other side and explore the differences on the other side and compare and contrast those differences. So I don't know. There's just for me, there's something that's a little more inviting. Quite often the vegetation alongside creeks is pretty developed. Sometimes you got to bushwhack your way along the bank as you follow a stream um, because there's so many plants. But if I don't know, if you're walking down the beach, there may be no plants because it's sand. There's no way that plants can get a hold. There might be some seaweed that's spread out on the ground, but there's no plant life there. And animals aren't necessarily rushing out to the beach to drink because the water is salty. It's not fresh water. And so maybe there are fewer animals, at least the kind of animals that are easy to see, right? Um, Along a stream, you could see reptiles and opossums, and you could see otters. And, well, yeah, I mean, you might see otters, but they're beavers sometimes. Whereas around with an ocean, I don't know. It's much of the wildlife is underneath the sea surface, and you can't see that quite often. There, it might because it's not fresh water. Quite often the water is not clear. At least in California's Pacific Ocean, in Southern California in particular, the water is very hard. There's not a lot of clarity in the water, but that's not true for streams and creeks. Quite often you could see like glass through the water, and that just makes it more interesting. So I guess that's an interesting. I'm just comparing and contrasting ocean sides to creek and river sides, and creek and river sides are more interesting. They're more interesting. They're more inviting. The thing about a beachfront, a beach, a beach is that there are no trees, and so there's no shade, right? Quite often there's no shade. So there's no protection from the wind. So it's quite often very windy. It's loud. Beaches are loud because why? The the waves are crashing against the shore. It's loud. I've had walks uh, as we walk or stroll across the beach, and I've had to raise my voice because the water's crashing so vigorously on the shore. Those waves are large, and all that energy has to go somewhere, and a lot of that energy goes into sound and its transmission. And let me tell you, it can get loud at the beach. And with all the wind, yeah, it could be fairly inhospitable. That's not necessarily true of creeks and streams. In fact, creeks and streams are actually quite inviting. There's shade quite often, and so, quite often there's also a trail, but not always. But you can always kind of make one, I suppose. But I don't know. It just strikes me as being more hospitable, quiet. In fact, the idea of the babbling brook, right, is an idea that is basically side by side with the word peace. That's not necessarily true with every ocean side. Ocean sides can be quite loud. In fact, um, I've heard adjectives around beaches where one can hear the ocean roar, right? Because the waves are so large. It's like, I don't know if I want to. I'm a little bit sensitive to sound personally anyway, and I like to have it quiet. And just because I just feel more comfortable when the sounds are low tones. And so I think that's why rivers seem to be a lot more inviting to me compared to oceans. Now, a lot of people love oceans, and I love oceans too. I really do. I've got a lot of wonderful associations with oceans, but I think that I can develop even closer associations with rivers because they're so inviting. They're just inviting places to be. There's something about a river that's inviting and calming and peaceful, and where congregations of all types of animals are welcome. I don't know. I just feel that way. Now, um, you know, there are some issues with rivers as well. Sometimes there's standing water, so you got to watch out for mosquitoes. You don't necessarily have to worry about mosquitoes along the beach or along beaches. I mean, maybe along some beaches you do, but I'm not sure mosquitoes are hanging out necessarily around the beaches, but they're definitely hanging out around rivers and streams. And even when it comes to things like fishing, not that I fish, I don't. I have sympathy for the animals, and I have no desire or intention to harm an animal. And but it just seems to me that if I were a fisher person, that I would much rather fly fish along a certain, um, flooded plain or something like that, a flooded area, like a wetland. I'd rather do like fly fishing on a wetland than I would do rod and reel fishing off of a pier or something like that. It just seems a lot more romantic. Yeah, yeah. I think to some extent you can get a little closer to the water. Like if you're fishing off of a pier, you might be 20 feet above the water, which is fine, on a man-made structure, of course. But if you're fly fishing, say, you might be in waders, you might be in a rowboat, right? I mean, how much closer to the water could you possibly get? So I don't know. There's something about lakes and streams and rivers that's just more intimate. Now, that's not to say there aren't rampaging rapids. There are plenty of them. And there are places where rivers are absolutely deadly in terms of the risk level of being near them. I wouldn't necessarily go be attracted toward those rivers. I think they might be nice to look at from a distance, or learn about perhaps, but I'm not going to be hanging out around rivers that are, what do they call them, category fives or something like that. That they're white rapid type rivers where there's lots of canyons and gullies and big rocks and waterfalls. Well, waterfalls are another interesting aspect of rivers and streams. I mean, you always, the idea, the prospect of being near a waterfall, maybe being under a waterfall, that's exciting and romantic. When it comes to oceans, I don't know, the ideas of waterfalls are fairly remote. The chances of hitting up upon a waterfall is pretty unlikely, unless there's a waterfall coming from a certain creek nearby. Yeah, I'm not visualizing waterfalls being in an ocean type setting. So anyway, I've been thinking about creeks lately and the differences between creeks and oceans, and I've just been sort of romanticizing in my mind, um, learning about just how wonderful it is to have access to so much water here in the state of California. I think in our state we do have access to some wonderful lakes and rivers and creeks, and I think I'd like to go discover them. I spent some time at Yosemite National Park, and um, I really loved the the aspects of the water. A lot of the waterfalls that fall in Yosemite are like Bridal Veil Falls and Yosemite Falls. I mean, these are amazing places, and the the activity of those bodies of water, those creeks, can really take your breath away. I mean, I remember I was hiking around, I forget near what waterfall, but it was so misty. There was just water everywhere because it was being thrown by, I guess, a waterfall that was higher up. And it was cold. I remember being just dusted with these particles of water, and it was beautiful. It made for a beautiful setting. I wouldn't necessarily want to hang out there for long durations because it seemed pretty treacherous. But those are really good times, and I'm glad to have had them. And they basically inform my perspective today, and you know, they're part of why I'm interested in rivers, because I do have experience on rivers. When I was growing up, I used to hang out near the Rio Grande River, and that was a beautiful river. And it's surprising how different it is depending on where you are. If you're sort of approaching the Rio Grande from Albuquerque, it's a much different experience than approaching the Rio Grande River from, say, the Rio Grande Gorge near Taos up in the northern mountains. And if you follow that river from, say, Taos down to Los Alamos, it changes. The river changes. It changes its mood. And there's a lot of fun that can be had on rivers and near them. Anyway, as you can tell, I'm basically obsessed with rivers and streams right now. And so not only am I reading this book, which is actually turning out to be really good. This is a book called the Falcon Series, Field Guide to Rivers and Streams. And I'm just loving it. Discovering Running Waters and Aquatic Life. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And I'm also listening to an audiobook. I think it's just called like a vast primer on rivers, and it discusses rivers from all over the world: the Yangtze River, the Amazon River, the Mesopotamian rivers, and and he did I say Mississippi and the Amazon, and he even discusses more remote rivers like rivers that are very seasonal in Antarctic, and I don't know. It's a really I'm really struck by the beauty of rivers. I mean, I think that's probably something that is often unsaid, but is deeply, deeply true. And was I've had the pleasure of seeing IMAX films where they celebrate rivers, and man, they really do take your breath away. The artistry, the cinematography, the drama of the river, and the potential for new knowledge and exploration and adventure is just, I don't know, it's one of life's pleasures, and I think I want to explore it more. So I'm going to be going camping next month, and there's a river nearby. It's really just a small creek, and I'm looking forward to breaking out my microscope and taking some glass slides and looking for algae along the riverbank, and also looking for other microorganisms. I'm uh, I'm kind of interested in bringing a notepad, and with that notepad and some pencils, drawing parts of the pond and the river, and sort of maybe diagramming parts of it, and maybe collecting. I don't know if I would collect anything. I was thinking, well, I guess I could collect some microscopic organisms. Um, I don't know if that I don't think that makes any sense to me, but I would definitely like to take samples of the moss. And maybe if there's anything in the mud, that would be kind of neat to sort of explore what might be in the mud. Perhaps there's some diatoms or other small microorganisms like parasites, or I don't know, single-celled or multicellular organisms. Maybe there's a who knows? Who knows? Spores. There might be pollen. I mean, there may be pollen on trees or leaves nearby, and those would be, I think, really interesting to take a sample of. So, I think I'd like to even take measurements. It'd be neat to sort of take measurements year after year. Like if I'm at that campsite every year for 5 years, it'd be neat to sort of measure the height and width of the creek at a certain time and place, and then sort of have a record of the behavior of the river. I don't know. All that sounds really interesting to me. And I might also take some photographs of it. I don't know. We'll see how things go. I'm still thinking about. I mean, I could take like pH or salinity measurements. That might be interesting. Um, yeah, I could also take measurements. There are certain devices that allow you to discover whether there's, how conductive the conductivity of the water might be interesting. The temperature of the water, certainly the flow rate might be interesting. I'm not sure if I have it. I wonder if there's a handheld tool that I can obtain that will help me gauge the flow rate of the river in certain places. I would also like to sort of see if I could spot any wildlife either in or beside the river, and also do like a survey of plants near the bank. Uh, the thing about it is my approach quite often actually quite is internet heavy, internet use heavy. And the fact is, I really am not going to be getting very good reception for my cell phone out there. So that's kind of a tragedy for me. I know a lot of people, they love to go camping and to be away from electronic gadgetry. And, for them, that's part of how they gain peace in the world. But that's not necessarily the way I see it. I, uh, I, I think of electronic devices as being real assets, and I appreciate what they can offer in terms of increasing quality of life. And so I'm a real advocate for electronics, and I am a little saddened to know that the cell networks are not going to be strong over there. So what that means is that I will not be able to use artificial intelligence to explore that area through voice as readily. I will not be able to use internet like Google Lens to do plant identification. Now, I
Here's a
can't.
summary from the website support.google.com.
Hey, Google, stop.
How do I use Google Photo to identify?
And yeah, so that's somewhat regrettable. Um, Now, I think I do have a app on my smartphone called Merlin, which helps me to identify birds via their songs and their calls. And I believe that that piece of software works without any internet needs. So that's really good. I guess it. I guess what I need to do perhaps is try to explore apps that I could download that perhaps have their own databases that I can download and I have full access to them even when I have no cell phone service. So that might be the way I need to do it. Anyway, that's pretty exciting. I'm excited about going camping and being next to a creek. And I mean, really, a big part of the question uh, is I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. What's great about creeks is that they're also a great place to meditate. If you can successfully avoid the mosquitoes. So, yes, I am going to have to come up with a few mosquito avoidance strategies. Whether it's going to be nets on my face, or I've actually purchased a gator, which I'm hopeful will help me. Maybe if the mosquitoes get really bad, I can sort of wear it over my nose and mouth so I can keep the mosquitoes out of my maybe my ears and my neck and think places like that. Um, yeah, it's that reminds me I should probably also buy some pants because hopefully it's not too hot there while we're camping and I can use I long sleeves and long pants to help protect me from some of the mosquitoes that might be there. Here we are in California and it's summertime and yeah, it's going to be at nighttime and in the mornings we're going to have mosquitoes. Well, maybe not in the mornings because I think mosquitoes don't necessarily come out in the cold because sometimes mornings, despite it being summer, can be quite chilly. And I know that mosquitoes are more apt to come out when it's warmer outside. So the evenings are going to be more of a time to start using some of those mosquito avoidance strategies, especially when I'm hanging out near a river. Of course, I might just decide not to hang out near the river when it's twilight outside. You know, because rivers are so peaceful, they're very nice places to read beside. And I did actually buy a semi comfortable camping chair that will help ease me into doing something like that. You know, if one is going to be at peace and relax near a river, hopefully they have a pretty nice chair to sit in. I know I'm used to being in a chair, and I'm not always gonna want to stand up. I think so. I did get a chair and I got a nice couple of some lights that I can use in case it starts getting really dark. You're in the mountains after all, and if you're in the mountains, you're quite often you're sort of camping in a valley somewhere, not necessarily on top of a mountain, but in a valley. And so when the sun goes down, it can get dark pretty quick. Um, I've got some experience camping, and So I am looking forward to that experience. I am also gonna buy some deep woods off to help protect me from mosquitoes. Isn't it interesting how um, challenging it is for human beings to stay away from mosquitoes? It's not easy to stay away from mosquitoes. Mosquitoes, they are intelligent in a way in terms of getting access to your veins and to your blood, right? I really wish that human beings had a better handle on avoiding mosquitoes and mosquito bites, but we really don't. They really are problematic. And it's actually pretty funny that there's this ongoing rivalry between mosquitoes and humans. I mean, I think it's a friendly rivalry, but it's real. It's real. We definitely, I don't know. I know human beings, we try our best to stay away from mosquitoes, and quite often we're failing at the task because mosquitoes, they're just, I don't know, clever little things. They really can. I mean, I've been bitten by mosquitoes through jeans like Levi's. I've been bitten through long sleeve shirts like this. This is actually a pretty thick cotton shirt. And, there is a chance, it's a somewhat remote, that a mosquito can um, stab me, bite me through this. I know we use like things like citronella and sprays, like DEET sprays, things like that to keep the mosquitoes off. And sometimes they're also using gases like carbon dioxide gases to attract mosquitoes, and other tricks, relating to using the sense of smell of the mosquitoes as bait, to lure them into traps. And, we've got all kinds. We even use genetic engineering to help shield ourselves from mosquitoes by sort of dumping into mosquito colonies a lot of mosquitoes that aren't fertile, that have been sterilized, and so that we can bring the mosquito population down. We have so many strategies, from nets to, I mean, the list just goes on and on. And we still have a hard time keeping mosquitoes at bay. I've been hearing stories in the news about West Nile virus. I'm really not bothered by West Nile virus. It's the chances are so remote. It's not even worth considering. But it's good to know that it's out there, and it's just an extra reinforcement of the idea that it's in fact, what, now that I think about it, what I might do is see if there are any mosquito strategies that have developed over the last few years. Maybe there's a kind of mosquito clothing now, anti-mosquito clothing, that is really effective. Who knows? Maybe there's like, I don't know, maybe there's like a there's like a jacket and pants that I can put over my existing pants and jacket. And I don't know, who knows? There are some clever scientists out there that are working feverishly to try to protect us from exposure to mosquitoes. And I'm grateful for all the work that they do, because, there's a lot of misinformation out there about mosquitoes. And it's really hard to sort through it all. Like, I know there have been hypotheses relating to whether a person might be more prone to bites if they have a certain blood type, or if they have certain genetics, or yeah, who knows what else. Anyway, I just wanted to say how much I appreciated you listening to me this evening. It's actually turning out to be a rather warm evening tonight, and I'm getting quite warm, and I might have to open a window or something like that, just so that I can cool off a little bit. I'm grateful that the weather here in California right now on the Central Coast has been so agreeable. Much of the United States right now is under high heat alerts because we've got a heat dome, and it's sort of spent a lot of time over the Midwest and Northeast, and I believe it's on its way out now. That heat dome is now somewhat dispersed, and it's in sort of like one of the Northeast corridors, and it's definitely on its way out. There's a lot of people who are affected still, but I've been grateful that California this time around hasn't been hit. That's not to say it won't get hit this coming summer. I mean, it is summer right now, but it just turned summer. I'm really expecting this July, August, September, and maybe even into October, a couple weeks into October, might be very, very warm. And so I am kind of strategizing to myself in my own mind about, how would I really deal with a really hot day that's not just hot but also hot and humid, which it has the tendency to get over here. It's rare, especially in areas closer to the sea, and I'm thankful that I live so close to the ocean. In fact, I'm really thankful for the ocean and just what a sport and a champ that the ocean has been over the last few hundred years while we've uh, basically messed up our climate, putting a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. A lot of the heat that our planet is absorbing now is being absorbed by the ocean, and the ocean is really taking a beating right now. And in terms of the rising temperature of the ocean is basically our shield right now, and it's basically the only thing that's keeping us alive. But the heat capacity of the ocean is limited. It's large, thankfully, but it's limited, and then eventually it's gonna warm up. This cold ocean we have is going to warm up, and it's going to be hotter than heck to cool it down again. I mean, really, it's going to be hard to cool it down again. And because of the heat capacity, the thermal heat capacity of water. And so, yeah, the clock is ticking, ladies and gentlemen. If we were on any other planet with less water, um, we would be suffering mightily right now. And the only reason we're not suffering as badly as we could be is that the ocean is saving our tits, our is saving our tushes right now. And so I just want to thank the ocean for saving us right now, but it's saving us at a great expense, at a great cost. You know, the ocean is acidifying now because of all the carbon dioxide in the air, and that's bleaching a lot of and killing a lot of coral. And the warmer ocean temperatures I'm sure is affecting wildlife adversely and entire food webs in the water. And I'm sure there's chaos and havoc going on in the oceans. So we've got just a little bit longer. The oceans are giving us just a little bit of a respite before things start getting really bad on this planet. So my gratitude to the ocean for giving us a few extra years. Not many, maybe 20, 30 years, if that. Hopefully we can get our act together as human beings and get this climate fixed. Anyway, I'll talk to you later, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.